You are listening to the REI Mastermind Podcast. Join JD as he chats with industry-leading real estate experts and professionals. We learn from their experience and uncover the strategies to their success that we can implement into our own businesses, and we can drive immediate results today. They share their experience and wisdom as we build the foundation to our own success. This is the REI Mastermind Network.
We have Bob Lachance on, and I'm going to make sure everybody has your contact information right off the bat, Bob. But we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about how we're going to be running your real estate investing as an actual business, how to outsource a few things so that we can focus on some things. In fact, you're probably familiar with the book Traction, and I've been revisiting some of that concepts lately as well. And then we especially going to have to spend a little time. We were chatting just before this conversation. Bob used to be a professional hockey player. And of course, one thing leads to another. And I got to brag about my daughter for a minute playing a little hockey. But I'm always absolutely fascinated how people move from one profession 360 to another. I mean, that there's got to be a story there. But I really appreciate your time. But if you would like to learn more regarding Bob or connect, make sure you go to Riva Global. That's REVAGLOBAL.com. And I'm imagining you're probably pretty active on LinkedIn as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we're on LinkedIn. We're all over the internet. My direct email address, you could send me an email at bob@rivaglobal.com as well. Also, you can find us on Facebook.
So, well, let's start right off the bat with that concept that you're a professional hockey player playing for the St. Louis Blues organization. How did you go from professional hockey to real estate? And I know you've been doing fix and flipping and everything, so we could probably go in a million directions here today, but there's got to be a story there.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I started in 2004. So I've been in this for 17 plus years. When I left, so I went to Boston University as well, but I left 2 classes short. This actually plays into the story. I left 2 classes short before getting my degree with the thought of, hey, I'm going to play pro. I could always go back to school. Well, unfortunately, fast forward 8 years after I played pro, never went back to school. So I had a decision, either I'm going to go back. I live in Connecticut, so I'm going to go back to Boston and take those 2 classes, or jump into an industry that doesn't need a degree, no barriers of entry, which is real estate investing. So did a lot of research on investing, read some books, read some courses, etc. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'd rather jump into real estate investing than go back to school. So that was my decision, either take the time out of my schedule to go back to school, or jump into this industry, and I decided this industry.
I'm always curious too, based on your experience. I mean, playing hockey, especially at a professional level, the level of dedication is just unreal to me. I mean, that you probably had went through. Can you maybe spend a little time talking about some of what you learned in professional sports and how you've applied it to real estate investing?
Absolutely. And the transition wasn't easy. I'll be honest with you. Whenever somebody jumps from one industry to another, it's never without its bumps and bruises, right? So, when you're playing professional sports, you have a schedule every day. You have a strength and conditioning coach telling you what to do every day. You have a coach telling you what to do every day. You're very disciplined on what you eat. Very disciplined of what you do off the ice, whether it's working out, whether it's nutrition, etc. So you're very, very aware of what happens in those times. So then when you transition to a work life, and especially real estate investing, I had 0 systems. I didn't even know what marketing was. I didn't know what rehabbers were. I didn't know anything. It's only when I learned from a book. But one of the things that I did learn when I was taught playing professional hockey is, work ethic. Always move forward. Always take one step in front of your body, and you're going to get momentum no matter what it is. So that transitioned over to the real estate investing side, where, it's kind of funny. You have to learn. You need some sort of real estate education before you jump in full full bore into investing, because there's a lot of different niches. You could be a rehabber, you could be a wholesaler, you could be a real estate agent, right? You could be a property manager, buy and hold. There's a lot of different niches in real estate investing. I first jumped in, I was a rehabber. So I learned how to farm areas and drive around neighborhoods and identify if there was any kind of distress out there, where high grass, etc. So I did that for right when I started investing, and I would call on, one of the good things is I would call on everybody. I wasn't scared to hear a no. I wasn't scared to call a real estate agent and sound uneducated. It didn't matter to me. I knew, hey, this was the path I wanted to go into. So I know that I'm going to get beat up, a couple days, but I was picking up the phone and I was very active and let everyone know what I wanted to do. Hey, I'm a rehabber. So I'll call on this one property. It was listed for $175,000. I put an offer at $135,000. Right. And a lot of people, especially newer individuals, are nervous to make lower offers because they're scared of the response they're going to get. Mm-hmm. My feedback is, do yourself a favor. Don't be scared, because it's just a no. And you never know when you're going to get a yes, because in this particular situation, the homeowner was going through a divorce. I didn't know. Right? I went through an agent, I put an offer, and they ended up accepting it. So did a rehab, made $32,000 on my first rehab. But I also realized I knew nothing about real estate investing. I got lucky, right? I found rehabbers, I found money, etc. Then I joined my local real estate investment association, and there was a speaker that was speaking on pre-foreclosures. That's properties that are over-debted, which means that the property debt would be $200,000, but the value would be $150,000. So I learned from a speaker on how to do that, and then I also learned from a mentor. I got a mentor right away in my local market, and we just hit the ground running. And I did short sales for a long time after that. So that's just a little bit of my story.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of reinforced lessons there that I'm sure some of my listeners are kind of tired of hearing me mentioning. First of all, you were talking about making those dials and making those calls. It's that persistent, consistent behavior that eventually gets you where you want to go. I've even gone to the point of suggesting that people should take an inventory of those money-making activities that they can focus on, pay attention to. And if it's not on that list, if it's not making you direct money, you don't do it during business hours. You do those after hours. But I really like that that's exactly what you did. You were making those dials, finding that next opportunity. But once you do this a few times, you eventually start to have that track record where, every 1 in 10, 1 in 50 is a yes. And every time, once you learn how many people you have to talk to, every no is just, I see it as every no is just one step closer to finding that yes. You're just you've just removed another hurdle to get to that next yes.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too. And it's important because when you start, you never know where you're going to end. It's very, very important. Real estate investing takes you on different tracks, right? When I first started real estate, I was a rehabber. Then we negotiated, me and my partner, after that, I found a partner. We negotiated probably over 700, 800, 900 short sale transactions. Mm-hmm. Then we helped start a couple real estate education programs. One of the biggest ones that ended up being around right now, we helped start that one. And then I turned into, while investing, I also started a real estate trained virtual assistant company out of the Philippines. So there's a lot of different avenues that you, me, anybody will take within their journey. It just takes you getting going. And like you said, you got to hammer the phones. You got to dial. Don't worry about a no, because a no leads to a yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So that does lead me into the situation. You have had a lot of things going on, and it sounds like you've taken the opportunity to follow those pursuits where the path leads you. I think that's an ideal situation, because what most people do when they get into real estate investing, they jump in head first. They don't focus on anything in particular. They spread themselves too thin. Whereas let the deal find the avenue of disposition where you're fixing it, you're flipping it, you're wholesaling it, you're doing something with it versus spreading out too thin. What you focus on is what typically grows.
Absolutely. And I could add to that too. One of the things, so going back the years, some advice I'll give somebody that's newer is start buying a property to hold. It doesn't, like, you could flip properties, but you flip and then keep. Flip, keep. It's very important because before you know it, 17 years is going to go by and you'll be able to look back and be like, wow, I actually have 20 doors. I have 30 doors. I have 40 doors. And then you're going to have that consistent cash flow coming in. You find, and this is what I find, a lot of people that use our virtual assistants, a lot of them are wholesalers, but we're also buddies because off of work stuff, we're also members of different masterminds as well. But what you find is that the most successful wholesalers also cherry pick and buy and hold a property. Same with a lot of flippers, because what happens is you kind of get in that rat race. You're making a lot of money. It's really fun because money is a drug. Once you start flipping, you're like, whoo, I just closed one 10 grand, all of a sudden 20, 30, 40, 50. But the challenge you run into is at the end of the year, you're paying the tax man a lot of that money rather than going to buy an asset that's always going to be spitting out money for you. Yeah. So to your point, 100%, you have to be focused starting off, and know if you get into wholesaling, you're going to lead to opportunities to buy, fix, and flip as well, right? So there's a lot of things to 100% look at because there's a lot of shiny objects out there. Be focused on what you want to start. It's okay if you change paths once you have a certain level of success in that one thing that you started for, just like you were saying.
So, that does lead me to this next question then, because it sounds like you've taken advantage of where the market has taken you. Before we hit record, you mentioned last year you did 60 fix and flips. You can't be doing the volume you're doing without scaling.
Yep.
And focusing on your business. What have you found was your biggest barrier when it came to scaling to that level?
It takes a team. It doesn't matter what business. Any entrepreneur, they could be a lone wolf, but they're only going to be so successful. If you do everything yourself, there's a ceiling, 100% a ceiling. That's okay if you want to do that. But if you want to continue to grow, continue to build your wealth, in my opinion, it takes a team. And every business that I've started, every business that I run, whether it's my real estate investment company, I have a partner there. Whether it's on my virtual assistant company, right? My wife is my partner, but we have a team. We have over 475 virtual assistants right now around the world, if you will. So it's very, very important to know that you're only as good as your team. And again, this is just my opinion. I've always been part of teams. I've played, ice hockey for all my life, played professional hockey, like you said before. But, if you think about this in any sport, right? If you're basketball, if you're a Michael Jordan, you can't win with just Michael Jordan. Yeah, he was the best that ever played. But guess what? He had a supporting cast. You had the Dennis Rodmans, you had the Scottie Pittmans, etc. So you need the supporting cast. Same thing in real estate investing. There's no difference.
Right. So just before we move on any further, I wanted to remind everybody again, go to revaglobal.com, revaglobal.com for more information, especially regarding this real estate virtual assistants. But when you started this company for the virtual assistants, I mean, that typically, I'm guessing, was born out of your need for a good virtual assistance that was familiar with real estate investing.
Absolutely. And I did mention to help start 2 different national coaching programs. And one of the coaching programs that we're doing also in our real estate investing company, one of the biggest needs is to try to find more time in your day. Because, when either if you're working part-time or full-time, or you're doing this full-time, there's always one thing that creeps up, and it is time. There's always time constraints on everything. So, it took me years to figure out, all right, how do we create more time in our day? And it was affordable outsourcing. So in 2013, I got introduced to what a virtual assistant was. I never even knew, to be honest, I never even knew what a virtual assistant was. And then someone brought it to my attention and said, hey, there's individuals all over the world and in different countries that could actually do this for you. I live in Connecticut. It's high wages here in Connecticut. So if I had to hire someone locally, it'd be unaffordable for small businesses. So I got introduced to that industry, and then a light bulb went on and said, you know what? I'm going to start working with virtual assistants myself. But if I need it, there's a bigger need out there for every real estate investor, every property manager, every real estate agent out there. So that's kind of where it started.
Sure. So, could you spend a little time, because we all have, I think we've had various degrees of experience with virtual assistants. What makes this attractive is that it sounds like they're going to have some more background in the industry than somebody you're going to find on Fiverr.
Yep.
What kind of training or what do you do to get them ready to work with real estate investors?
So all my virtual assistants are the Philippines. The reason why I picked Philippines, I tried all over the world. English is one of their national languages. That's first and foremost. I find that they have a neutral accent as well. And the way they grow up, they're a very loving culture, right? They look at your business as their business and very, very caring. So for me personally, there's a lot of customer service call centers out there in the Philippines. So a lot of them learn this stuff growing up. So for me personally, in the help that we need, whether it's social media management, whether it's cold calling, whether it's following up, etc., all of those tasks in and of itself are things that are very, very normal for the Philippine culture. But to get back to your question, we actually we train for a month straight. So anywhere between 3 weeks to a month of training our virtual assistants. So we have our own sourcing and recruiting department in the Philippines, which moves then into our training department. So not everybody that we source or we recruit gets through to our training team. We go through thousands of applications per month just to get to the cream of the crop of the best virtual assistants that even make it into our training department. Then they go through, like I said, 3 weeks to a month of training, and not everyone gets through. So we weed out the individuals that would not be good for me or would not be good for you. And then they go right to we call it a placements team. Placements team is like Match.com as an example. They'll look to exactly see what qualities and what type of tasks that you want your virtual assistant to do. And then they'll match that virtual assistant up with the tasks that you want. Then it moves over into our ops team, which we call a client service manager that manages the relationship between you and your virtual assistant, handles all HR, etc. So that's just a little bit of overview, but we go through about 3 weeks to a month of training virtual assistants for our clients.
Yeah, could you give us some examples of what is some of those common activities that they can do for you?
Absolutely. Social media marketing, jumping on Facebook, building a buyer's list, also cold calling. There's a lot of phone work being done because one of the challenges that we see with a lot of investors is, sitting on the phone. If I'm going to grab my phone and be on the phone all day long, it drains your energy. It is tiring. To generate leads, to see if individuals are interested in selling their property, that takes a lot of time. So if you're the principal in your business and you're doing that all day long, you will get drained. So what I found from the years and years and years of doing this. I did this first when I first started real estate. I would door knock and then I would go home. I would skip trace, try to find out those individuals that I door knock what their phone number is, and I would call. I would call for 3 hours a day, every single day from Monday through Friday. And that burns you out pretty quick. So you got cold calling, text messaging. They can manage direct mail. They could pull lists for you. They could run comps, property management, companies use ours to do leasing, lease renewals, etc. So I know I lay down a lot. If you wanted to ask questions about that, I could go on forever.
Yeah, no, well, we could spend quite a bit of time on this. So I'm always curious too. Do you get like a dedicated resource? Is it shared? And if it's shared, how does that work?
Yep. So we offer full-time or part-time virtual assistants. So a part-time virtual assistant would be 20 hours a week and a full-time would be 40 hours a week. And they're dedicated to you. So if you have a part-time virtual assistant working for you, we promise and we aim to give our virtual assistants full-time work. So they'll be 20 hours with you and 20 hours with me. Obviously not in the same hours. So part-time, full-time model.
Yeah, no, that's especially important. Like I've worked with a virtual assistant company at one point, and it kind of was more of a pool of resources,
right? And
it never gave me an opportunity to have anybody understand how I worked, how I wanted to handle certain things. We use certain sales strategies when we make phone calls that we would like to incorporate, and it was more of along the lines they'd answer the phone, and a script would pop up on their screen and they're just reading it and it sounds read. I mean, it's not.
And that's the difference, right? You have some kind of group style call center style companies, or you have one-on-one. I found that the one-on-one model for us and all of our clients works out very, very well. And for my own business, works out extremely well.
So, well, being in the Philippines, this, and being dedicated like this, I really don't have a barometer as to how expensive something like this is. I mean, it almost sounds on the too good to be true when it comes to some of the situations there. What I hate to put you on the spot, but pricing, how reasonable is that?
Not at all. I'll explain it. So for full time, it's $9.60 an hour. Part-time, it's $10.60 an hour. We pay for all the benefits for our virtual assistants. We have the best insurance in the Philippines. So, no one has to shoulder that. All of the bonus money that you want to give to your virtual assistant goes right to them. So it's very, very easy. $10.60 an hour for part-time, $9.60 an hour for full-time.
Well, okay. Well, that sounds very reasonable, especially when you're taking care of everything else. I mean, hire somebody in the United States for that.
Yep.
Unless you're a restaurant, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, it's funny. So we had I used to have a used appliance company as well. So I do some off investing, and our cleaners for our used appliance were $12.50 an hour, and none of them could speak English. So the challenge of finding anybody local is slim to none for that amount of money. So, and this is $10.06 an hour. We pay for everything else. So, so if you have an employee here, you're paying for taxes, you're paying for whatever else you're going to be paying. So it's pretty interesting how that works. Also, the virtual model works well because you're not paying for desk space, you're not paying for, their cell phone, etc.
Sure. How hard is it? Let's say you did a part-time thing. Have you found that a lot of your VAs, when they're not being actively told what to do, like they find things to do? Like it's not something that's just ticking away the bill?
Yeah, no, great question. So we have a client service manager that actually manages the relationship. So we have our virtual assistants send out end-of-day reports to make sure that you know exactly what they did that day. So our client service manager, along with you, will look at the end-of-day report and say, wow, well, you called, let's say you cold called 400 calls one day. Next day, you called 200. So now the client service manager and you have a conduit to say, hey, what happened there? Was it why was it 400 one day, 200 the other? So we have a stopgap in exactly what you're saying, which is extremely important. I think, that is one of the things how we separate ourselves from a lot of the other companies is we have, a second line that will help you manage your virtual assistant.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to shift the conversation back just a hair back to scaling and treating this real estate investing as a business. But I'm going to focus on mindset, because I think we're talking about a pretty significant mind shift for people when they're considering something like this and scaling for the first time. First of all, you're probably the jack of all trades right now. You're doing everything yourself. You've hit a plateau and you need to let your baby go a little bit. So having that confidence in somebody else to do some of those tasks, would you say that's probably one of the barriers you're dealing with?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So there's so much stuff to do as a business owner. I mean, you know that, right? With just having a podcast, there's so many moving parts to get that podcast to the air, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with investing in real estate. You have your marketing, right? So you have to set up that marketing, whether it's a direct mail, cold calling, text messaging, Facebook ads, whatever you're going to do. You have your marketing. And if you don't have any marketing, you don't have a business, because you don't have leads coming in. It's typically how that works. So those are a set of tasks under one department. Then that goes to, hey, once the phone rings, that needs to go to your acquisition team. So now you need, and this is everybody has all these hats at the beginning. Then you have to take that call. You have to really vet it. You have to see if it's a lead. And if it is a lead, you're going to set an appointment for yourself to go meet at that property, right? So now you're taking a lot of time out of your day. Now you have to negotiate the contract. You have to write the contract. You have to make the offer. Once it's accepted, now you have, transaction coordinating work. You got to call your attorney, your title company, right? You got to line up funding depending on your exit strategy. If it's a wholesale, you have to now, again, pick up the phone, because you already have to have a buyer's list, and you now have to sell that deal to a buyer. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of moving parts. And if it's a rehab, we could go off on, working with your contractor team. But there's a lot of moving parts. To your point, there's a lot of moving parts in this business that you have to start getting off of your plate to get a life back, right? Time is our biggest challenge in being any entrepreneur.
Yeah. No, I wanted to take a second too to remind everybody that the reason we typically have gotten into real estate investing is to earn back some more time. I mean, we don't typically get into real estate investing to essentially give yourself a 120 hour a week job. I mean, we're trying to recapture some time, and this is a great way in which to do that. And sometimes you have to decide to let a few things go. Yep. So one more time, I wanted to remind everybody, rivaglobal.com. I'll make sure to have those links in the show notes, as well as Bob's contact information regarding the social networks. But I do have a couple last questions for you here, Bob. One of them is, now that you've been in real estate investing for as long as you have, doing 60 or more fix and flips in a year, what is the one thing that you've learned now that you wish you would have known when you first started?
Start keeping earlier. And that is, you look back, and that's a great question, because no matter what industry is, that's a fantastic question. If I look back and I could kind of see into the future, it would be holding, because there's a lot of benefits from it. I mean, you look at appreciation alone in this weird market we're in. If you bought back in 2004, or you bought in 2011, or if you bought whatever, prices back then, they seemed high. The prices always seem high, no matter what. It doesn't matter. You're like, it seems high. But now they're really high. So if you're paying down debt and your rental income is positive, I won't go anything lower than $300 per month per door. That's just something that we do here, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, think about it. After 30, 40 doors, that's $12,000 at least per month. That's today, but in 10 years, what is that going to be? Right? That 12 is going to be $20,000. So it's really just being very disciplined in holding some stuff. That's what I would have done back in the day. Sometimes it's a little painful to hold that first property, but do it. I promise you will be happy.
Yeah. Start holding earlier. And then lastly, is there a question you wished I would have asked you here today?
Good question. Maybe one of them is what would you do first if you're a newer investor, if that's your crowd? And I think my answer would be get started. Stop making excuses, because there's so many. You have the devil and the angel on your shoulder, right? One is saying go, 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 start. The other one's like, well, you know what? Maybe wait. Don't procrastinate. Real estate investing has made and has changed so many people's lives in the positive way. And it has done that for me personally. It's allowed me to offer a service throughout the process, which is a virtual assistant company, which if I never started in real estate investing, I would never be able to offer the service and use my virtual assistants in my own business. So I would say don't procrastinate and get started.
No. Great advice. Well, I can't thank you enough, Bob. And you're always welcome back. And I'll make sure to include all the links in the show notes, but let's keep in touch.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you again. And, wish you all the luck in the world. Thank you.
This has been the REI Mastermind Network. You can already tell that we've made some changes and a few more are on the way. If you are interested in what we have planned, head over to patreon.com/REI Mastermind and support the show today. Financial contributions are always appreciated, along with a like, share, and review. It really helps us grow and reach more people with this valuable information. See you next time, and tell a friend.